Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to some Warpforge. And I know this is a bit of old news, nearly a month ago, but I thought for a first video back after I took a bit of a break, could just be about like where things are at with Warpforge now and sort of my impressions, basically a little bit more than a month into almost 2 months, I think at this point. Um, and where we're going, because I think that's the important thing. Is there was a lot of anticipation about the launch, and I've seen like a bunch of articles of like, this is a very anticipated CCG. How are things going? How are the ratings on Steam? And I thought I just gave a little bit of my kind of honest thoughts about the game, and where things are at. And before I dive into that, thank you for sticking with the channel if you have. It's definitely been a while since we posted, and I'm definitely going to be trying to get some more videos up when I can. And I hope that it's still helpful. I still get some nice comments here and there about just learning the game and enjoying the stuff on the channel. So thank you for your support. And thank you to the Warpforge team for accepting me into the content creator program. I've been definitely slowed down in terms of the pace of videos I've been putting out, but I'm still playing the game, still enjoying it. And I'll be definitely doing more content in the future on just my continuation with Warpforge. So just a couple honest thoughts before we read, the roadmap, which I think is definitely very important for us to talk about for the future. I think the current state of the game is getting a lot better. And I think on release, it was very clear which factions were way ahead, which was mostly Ultramarines at the top and then Necrons shortly below. They even acknowledged, I think, in one of the recent balance patches, which I won't go over too much just because it's already happened, that Chaos was coming in at a 40% win rate, which is not good. You do not want a major faction in your game or a major way to play your game coming in at 40%, right? You want to get at least 50%. And then for the tryhards and those of us who might be trying to climb to the top of the ladder, we're looking for decks that we can get closer to the 70% range, or at least, to 60%. But you want to make sure that at least every strategy or like faction that people enjoy playing is somewhat competitive, and I would just put that at 50%, right? It's a coin flip, it's not the best, but 40% just means that majority of the games you're losing, which just means people are going to get less and less interested to play Chaos. And I think they've made some pretty solid balance changes with some of the warlords and just some tweaking cards. Even when I came in to play Space Marines after a little while, noticed some of the other tweaks, and they don't feel so dominant. It does feel like there's a little bit of breathing room for some of these other factions. I mean, let me know what you think in the comments. But I think things are getting closer to a better balance, is what it feels like whenever I'm playing ranked. But in particular, I've been playing a lot more draft, and I've definitely thought about featuring more of that on the channel. So I'll see what you guys think of that. I had put up an Eldar one, but I've got an Orc one that I'll probably do a video for, and let me know what you think. But I think, as I'm just reflecting on the game overall, definitely the progression is fairly slow. It's less of a slog. They made some quality of life changes, and we'll dive right into that in a second. But if you want to play multiple factions at a pretty reasonably competitive level, it's going to take time, and it's going to take you putting into the time to get the crates, to try and get the max wins in draft, to get your missions done, all of that. And I think if you just know that going in, and you pick a faction that you're really going to focus on to be kind of like, that's your competitive one, that's what you're, putting a lot of time and effort into, then the game is very enjoyable, right? Because you can get a very serviceable deck when you've done the majority of a campaign. However, if you get bored of that faction, it's going to take you a bit to build it up. I'm almost done sort of going through most of the important parts of the Eldar campaign. I've been doing that. Obviously not showing it to the channel, but getting that done as well. And it takes time, and I'm really interested in probably doing Orcs or Chaos next, because I've had a lot of fun playing those sorts of play styles. Yeah, it just takes a bit of time, and maybe they'll be able to speed that up in the future to really benefit, especially free-to-play players. Definitely the game is a bit more skewed towards pay to win, right? Like if you're able to invest more, whether that's buying the premium for the campaigns, or just buying packs, buying gold, all of that sort of stuff, you're going to fulfill your progression faster, right? And I'm more of a free to play player myself. Um, so, just weigh that when you're doing the game. You can certainly still get there over time. And that's basically what I've been doing. So as long as you're not maybe coming in with a mindset of like, I can pick up a faction, max out the campaign, have a perfect deck, all that kind of stuff. If you go in knowing it's going to be a bit of slower going, you're going to be doing some drafts, you're going to be doing your missions. Maybe you can get to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 rank with your deck, but maybe you're not able to crack into the top 50 or something like that. I think it's really about what is your expectation for this card game, and how do you sort of basically just match up your expectation and how you have fun with the game with what the game actually is offering you. That's kind of my 2 cents on that. So let's talk about the future, and let's talk about some things that have already happened. But I know not everyone covers stuff like this, so it is almost a month after. But I think these are things that are going to be, pretty heavy implications for the future of the game. And I thought it would be a good place for us to start, getting content back up on the channel. So for this roadmap article, they actually start with some new features and quality of life. So they've definitely reworked a bit of the daily mission system. That is good. Before, it was operating where it's like every 8 hours, I think. It's like you get new missions, and it just feels like, how am I supposed to capitalize on this with sort of the way that it works? So they made it so if those missions were, to like, what does it say? It's reworked its system, can now be queued so that you only need to play once a day to maximize your progress rather than multiple times each day. And so basically they're just kind of waiting for you to complete them, and then other new ones will come in once a day. And so that's just better, right? So when you have a weekly challenge, right, they also changed it so if you complete any daily missions before collecting, it will count towards the weekly challenge instead of being wasted, right? So these are all good changes for all players, but definitely for free-to-play players, anything that makes the effort and specifically the time that you're putting into the game feel more equitable to what you're getting out of it and the reward, you're going to feel better, right? You're not going to have these sort of feel bad moments. So these are really good changes. I'm really glad that they listened to the community about the mission system. It's probably not exactly what the community wanted, but I think this is much closer to ideal than what we started with. And then I like some of these quality of life changes, especially the one around the weekly challenge, because you don't ever want to be like, oh, I couldn't get off work, I got to crank out all these missions tonight if I want to get all of this, right? Like the time pressure that this game sort of had in it when it first came out was not good for people who didn't have time. And now it's getting progressively better for people who are going to play this game more casually. It's on the phone, right? People are playing here and there. You just want to make it so people are playing the game, but not feeling like they're forced to play the game. And also that whatever they are playing the game, they're getting something out of it in the progression system, whether that be through the Forge or through the campaign, and the campaign is the primary one. And also, if I'm saying a lot of stuff you don't know about, definitely go back to my other videos. I've gotten a ton of support. I really appreciate it on some of the early, videos where I'm looking at what rare should you craft, what legendary should you craft, what other new cards should you craft, which factions should you pick, how do you do the progression system. I have all of that up on the channel, and my thoughts haven't really changed too much on that. So, but let's get to I think the juicier part, which is the Warpforge early access roadmap, right? So we're already past November, right? We're into December. So the content creator program has launched. Just for some people who may be interested, this is a great time to jump in. You do need, I think it's a minimum 250 subscriptions on YouTube or 250 followers on Twitch. And I know Twitch in particular is kind of tricky unless you've had a bigger community, because I just don't think there are a lot of people following and watching people stream Warpforge. In the future, maybe that will change. Maybe there are ways to make the game a little bit more viewer friendly. I think the game has a lot of complexity to it, and so it's not the easiest to kind of watch and pick up and understand. So I think, YouTubers, and myself included, have a little bit more of a leg up if we've established some sort of community to be a part of the program. And then it sounds like there are going to be some cool in-game rewards and some other incentives for us to be creating content. So I certainly don't mind that, especially if I'm going to do it anyway. So that's up and running. First rank season is in December. I'm a little over 1,000 rank. I'm going to be honest, I haven't put a ton of time into ranked. I've definitely been a little bit more interested in playing drafts, and kind of maximizing that and getting my missions done for my campaign so I can feature more stuff on the channel. But I hope it's going well for everyone. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments of like which decks are performing best, and what you're finding success with, because I think that's what I always want to provide to everyone here. So um, those two things have already happened, and hopefully they're kind of kicking off pretty well. And then we've got some two speculative things, and I'll kind of give my thoughts. Right, so the last few days of November, we're upgrading the content creator program, so good time to jump in if you can. And then December will be the first ranked month after a balance patch, which they put up, right? So it wasn't just bugs, but it was also, again, I think nerfing some of what the Space Marines were doing, a little bit of the Necrons, and then buffing some of the weaker factions, which is good. First rank season is up and running. It'll be interesting to see. I think they even upgraded, like you can get certain cosmetics, which is cool. So I'm glad they're listening to the community about that. Then some I would say more interesting future planning that's coming up. So the first quarter of 2024, we will bring even more major features, in particular the alliances system. So I don't think any of us know what that means at all. But my hope and sort of guess would be maybe there is an alternate game mode that is either a little bit more kind of campaign focused, which I wouldn't be surprised by, and maybe there's something about alliances in it. Or what I think makes a little bit more sense is a game mode where you can combine factions in an alliance in your deck, right? Because right now, you pick a faction, those are the only cards you have access to in that deck. Can't mix and match like Eldar with Space Marines, Necrons with Tyranids, Orcs with Tyranids, whatever it is. So maybe they've already kind of planned out an alternate game mode where you can do that. That is very interesting to me. I do love that factions kind of you can have this identity and you're like, oh, I'm a Space Marines player or I'm a Tyranids player. But I think it's probably a little bit more interesting to new people who have like zero investment in different ones to be able to mix and match and kind of figure out what they like. And also, I think in terms of competition and complexity, that's a really interesting possible, mechanic. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. These are straight up guesses, but just the idea of alliances makes me think that maybe we can intermingle some of the factions in some sort of way. The new faction in quarter one of 2024. Obviously, quarter one we don't know exactly when that's going to happen. I don't think it's a secret. There has always been a channel on the official Discord for the Tau, and I think that is a faction that a lot of people have kind of always been attached to in Warhammer 40k universe. So I'd be really surprised if it's not them, but it also could be the Imperial Guard. I think they've also had a channel on there. I think most people would be happy if it's one or the other. I know there are a lot of people who love the Imperial Guard, so maybe that has a little bit more of a face than the Tau do. But they are the two factions I've ever seen talked about and like really, really emphatically and like passionately in the Discord channel. So my guess is one of the two. If I had a choice, honestly, I love playing the Tau and some of the RTS games. Imperial Guard are cool. I think their lore is cool. I've learned a little bit since watching some of these podcasts with, I think his name is like Issakander and Coda. They're like two guys who do a lot of this really great lore stuff on YouTube. Anyway, I think either one would be cool. I think Tower a little bit cooler, personally, but the Imperial Guard I think would be a great addition to the game as well. So I just love that there's a roadmap. It's no secret on the channel. I also play DC Dual Force. I love that game. There's a ton of stuff going on if you want to check that out. We don't have a roadmap, though. And I know that maybe roadmaps railroad what teams can do, so I can understand why developers may not want to put them out. But I will say, like, in terms of feeling like the game has longevity to it and has intention to it, it is really nice to get a roadmap when you can. And I think the community in general really appreciates it. So there's a lot of stuff that's already happened. I think a new faction to the game is going to be really, really big for people. But also I think it's going to take time for everyone to progress to the point where, like, you have a deck for every faction that's, like, pretty serviceable. Because I would say you have to really get through probably halfway in a campaign to really do that. So to switch gears really quickly, just for those who might be curious, I thought I'd at least show where my Eldar campaign is. So, I filled in a lot of my Ultramarine, which I still have premium from, which I was very grateful from the Warpforge team. And I have all three leaders, and I've either pulled them or crafted them, and it's worked out really well. For Eldar, I think premium is going to make a lot more sense because there are a lot more legendaries, but we're pretty far through the campaign, and we've got a pretty close to serviceable deck. I'm hoping this random legendary is going to be a good one because we could really use it. And also, I've upgraded the Forge for both Ultramarines and Eldar pretty well. So level 7 on Ultramarines, level 6 on Eldar, which nets you like a good amount of value. So I definitely, after you've done a bit of the campaign, you've cracked enough packs, you should be able to fill out your Forge a little bit, and that definitely gets you a little bit further in your progression. So just to wrap up things here, thanks so much for sticking with the channel. And if you're interested in more Warforged content, I'm going to have some more of that coming to you soon. So as always, thanks for your support, and I will catch you next time.